6:07 according to the clock in here. We'll go ahead and get started. We don't have minutes printed out from the last meeting, so we're going to skip over approval of minutes. Public participation.
My name is Dustin Dillon. Here I'm at my son and myself, hoping to get permission from the board to install a geocache at the Reservoir properties. We actually brought cache, so you can see it. It'd be permanently affixed to a U-post. I can pass that around if you guys want to see it. Permanently affixed to a U-post. The combination locks would be a series of local relevant facts and dates that finders would have to find on the Cameron website. The cache type would be listed as a cache in, trash out, which would encourage the geocache community to prepare themselves to pick up trash in the process of looking for the cache. We're kind of hoping for some insight and approval as to where we might be able to put it, if we are able to put it somewhere.
I don't see any reason why we couldn't. Is that you?
Where would be like the ideal place to put it? I mean, where would?
So the goal is to encourage as much participation as possible. So probably someplace close to parking, kind of off to the side, probably close to a bathroom, someplace that would still be handicap accessible. Someplace that's not going to be like 2 miles down the trail. It's not going to be off trail where people vandalize or
right.
If you're thinking close to ADA parking, ADA sidewalk, and bathrooms, the parking lot at the northwest corner of number 2, Sunrise Lake, where the fishing deck is, where the canopy is, somewhere over there would be the place that has all 3 of those. No other place has all 3 of those.
Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
So how does that work? I've heard of it, but I don't even.
So
I'm not familiar with it at all. So.
The way that it works, hints and clues are posted on the geocaching website, which is free to use. And people can look that information on people that are active in the geocaching community. It gives them hints and clues as to where to look for it, but not specific locations. They have to go to the location. They have to figure out the clues. They have to then open the cache, and then they can sign the log. A cache this size, they'll be able to exchange small items, tokens, gifts, that kind of thing. It's just something to encourage people to get out and about and to physically go to the location. And then because of the type of cache that it is, the cache in, trash out, it's something that the geocaching community does to foster trash collection and that kind of thing in public spaces and natural places, that kind of thing.
I think the only thing I would ask is you say you're going to install a post?
A U-post.
Just if you could put that close to the edge of the trees, somewhere where it doesn't add maintenance, having to mow around it, that sort of thing.
Well,
the
beauty of it is you can put it wherever, and people are more than happy to maintain and to clean and that kind of stuff as part of the community. So.
Okay. Got that. Sounds good to me. Anybody? Yes. Questions, comments? Go for it.
Fantastic.
There's nothing options in Cameron, so I think it'd be nice to have more of them.
Yeah. I have found a few of those. My brother got into that for a while, and we went and found some geocaches around Kansas City, around random places. So I'm at least vaguely familiar with them.
Is there like a plan to like expand any on it, or just is there typically like one in it?
So there's already 2 or 3 in Cameron. Admittedly, they're kind of old and some of them unmaintained. He would definitely like to expand on it. His goal is to have a few hundred, I think. Last time we talked, it was like, oh, we should get a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, so obviously the opportunity to create a presence in more boxes and stuff like that is
More of a draw for people that are looking for something like that, I guess.
Yeah, sounds good to me.
Yeah.
fantastic.
All right, moving on to financial report. Zach, is there anything to point out on there?
No, not a whole lot. We're getting down to the end of the fiscal year, which ends here in a couple of days, in September. So I think these reports kind of, again, this showed our last budget adjustment, which kind of adjusted most of our revenue expense I think we'll still have a few more expenses to come in from this month. I think the revenue is pretty well done, so I think by the time we get what we know expenses are probably out there, probably looking at a positive year end of about somewhere around $50,000 this year. So I think that's good. But I think it is fair to note that we were missing, we did have some savings from staff vacancies a couple months, but like I said, I think we should end the year with a positive balance. That's really the only thing to note on those. Like I said, we'll just be closing out the year here next couple of days and go from there.
Anybody questions, comments on the finances here? While they're finishing up, I'd like to circle back to the budget projections while we're here. Last month I had asked about the discrepancy between the total borrowed essentially for the Storm and Street portion of the Series 21, I think it was, and the total payments where the repayment was $400,000 less than the initial balance. Did you follow up on that at all?
Carmen had talked to DA Davidson and they had met on that, but I don't have that report back from them yet for you. But I know Carmen visited with Charlie and Jonathan on that issue. I don't have that number.
Okay, and then what's the timeline for the next payment on the bonds? If I remember correctly, there's one in the spring, one in the fall, and I may actually have dates in here somewhere.
Yeah, for some reason I have April, October in my mind, but I don't. That might be water and sewer bonds on
So with the assumption that if we do nothing, we're going to, I guess, am I correct in this assumption that if we do nothing, there will be $300 and some thousand, I think it's $370,000 issuance from the bond to be used towards repayment?
Yes.
So I guess I keep circling back to that, and I still don't believe that that's necessary. So the way we got to this point on those bonds, I mean, all of those numbers would have been vetted all the way up through staff, and they were approved by council before those bonds were issued, correct?
That I don't know.
I mean, they were approved by council, so I have to assume that they were made that level for a reason.
Right. I don't, like I said, I wasn't involved with that process or how those numbers were vetted. And again, you're still relying on the information that's provided. And I know that at a staff level, we had passionate discussions on on actual expenses. And what we were actually comfortable with as far as kind of a maximum borrow amount. Now, how those conversations played out, I don't know. I just know that I was involved with some of those conversations, and those were the two arguments that would be portrayed.
Okay, so I guess what I look at is if we take a bond issuance just to put back towards the balance, we're essentially borrowing 370, well, over the course of the next 4 years, 1.2 million just to pay interest on it.
Well, the money has already essentially been issued through those certificates. So essentially all you're going to do is you're going to use that money for debt service for the next 3 years. So you're just essentially going to free up that money that you would use for debt service that you could use for whatever you want.
And so in the scenario where we decide to not expand anymore, to not spend anything else out of that 1.2, is it not an option to just not issue those?
No, it's already been obligated, it's already sitting there.
Essentially, they've already been sold, they just have not given us the money.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. They're just sitting there waiting for us to say, here we want this, and here's what we're using it for.
So, I mean, if we do that, if we just take that money and put it into, like according to the budget projection, where essentially we would just hold that money in reserve to pay for excess expenses over the life of the 25 years. So 1.2 million, when you look at the repayment on the bonds, it ends up about 140% of the initial premium. So you're paying over the life of for every million you borrow over the life of that 25 years, you're paying back 1.4. I mean, that's the nature of compound interest.
Right.
And so if we receive this money just to sit it in savings, that's going to be based on 40%, about $480,000 in interest just to hold that money in savings. That seems like I guess, if that's the proper, if not spending that 1.2 is the proper course, then I have to go back to why did we borrow that 1.2 to begin with, just to waste $500,000 on interest to not spend it.
Very good question.
So with that, I mean, and this is probably an answer that you don't have, but do you know what the basis for, like, why was the projected expense growth more than double the expected income?
And that I do not know.
So, I mean, for all of these reasons, like I said, while we were waiting on, and this goes back 6 months ago, not just recently, 8 months ago at this point, back in January, I ran all these projections myself, and I mean, when you look at all the historical trends, when you look at everything, it just doesn't make sense to me that the growth of expenses would be that much different than the growth rate of income. And yes, there is going to be a large, a chunk addition to expenses because we do have a lot more to maintain. But based on the projections, the assumption is baked in there that, number one, we have absolutely no control over the growth of expenses. They're just going to run away from us. And number two, that they're going to continue to grow at that rate over the full 25 years. So I guess I would like to see us be able to come to a projection that we can agree on as appropriate before we issue $370,000 or take that just to pay interest on it, essentially. I mean, for every 370 that we take, that's 125 roughly that just goes into interest over the life of the 25 years if we just sit that there in savings. Now, if we take that the first time, offset 370, you know, we certainly could turn around and use that 370 elsewhere. But if according to what I understand to be the goal outcome of this 25-year projection is that we just hold it all in reserve. Is that an accurate?
Well, no, I mean, you mean regarding the 125 is left, 1.25? No, I think the best option with what's left there is again supplying that towards the debt service.
Okay. So, but based on the 25-year projection, that would, I mean, in order to end up with a positive fund balance at the end of the 25 years, we would not spend a penny of the money that we free up. We would hold it in reserve to pay off the overages in year 2033 through 2046.
I think it's important to note that in whatever year that is, that your debt service payment is going to increase.
I agree.
And we want to be prepared for that. So I think having years like this year, where we were just $50,000 to the good, or next year we're a little closer to that, I think that's something that staff wants the park board just to realize that, hey, just because we got 50 grand left this year doesn't mean we need to spend 50 grand. No, that we do need to build a little of that into reserve. And I think by taking that money that, again, like I said, there's really not a whole lot we can do with that. It's already been issued to us. So applying that back to debt service frees up that money that we can put towards other things. Now, whether some of that ends up in reserves or covers additional maintenance, whatever it might be, it gives us that flexibility.
But according to the 25-year projection, in order to end up with a positive balance at the end of that, what we would do with that 370 that we free up is hold it in reserve to pay off expenses that are growing uncontrollably at the end of the 25 years.
Sure, if you want to do that, I'm going to argue with you one bit.
No, I'm saying that's the way this is designed.
Yeah.
Am I incorrect on that?
No, like I said, I think the purpose of the projections is just to point out that fact that we have that day coming, that a large fixed cost that we're going to have to deal with is going to increase significantly at some point in time. And
yes.
We need to have funds available at that point to cover those expenses.
And I agree with that statement.
Yes.
But the way these projections have been portrayed and the way that my understanding of how they've been portrayed to the council is, this is what's going to happen. This is our only option.
Those are simply projections. Because in all honesty, when we get to that point, and not to get too deep into the weeds tonight, because I know we've got a lot to talk about, but when we get to that point that debt service payment increases, we'll probably be at a point that we can call those bonds and call those certificates and reissue that, maybe with another phase project or maybe something else, but there will probably be an opportunity that we'll be able to essentially refinance that at that point in time. So I seriously doubt that the park is going to pay that amount for the next 25 years to be done. We will refinance that sometime.
So that gets back to, I mean, the reason that we have the 1.2 left over to begin with, why it was left over off the pool, is because, and this is in Charlie's memo when he came and gave the board the proposal for the bond issuance, is we were in historically low interest rates. And his recommendation was allocate high and use whatever left over for the park. So I guess I don't foresee us refinancing just because those were incredibly low rates that we got on them to begin with.
Right, but like I said, I don't know what, again, we may be looking at an additional issuance for the park in down the road. Again, I don't know. I understand that's
So
probably more likely than us paying these out all the way to the end.
when you say an additional issuance with what money, according to these projections?
I don't know.
I mean, you're saying that we don't have money to pay our bills, but yet on the other hand, you're saying that we're going to have so much that we're going to issue more bonds.
Possibly. Yeah.
Those don't, I mean.
Yeah.
Which one is it, I guess?
No, again, like I said, it may be an effort to, again, to lower that cost, look to lower that payment, borrow more money, free up a little cash immediately to do something. And again, that's a possibility.
So where I'm going with all this,
I mean, write down the projections, whatever you want. I said that they're not meant to. They're not set in stone or a guarantee of what they're going to. Again, we just want to put it in front of the park board that there's coming a point in time when payment is going to increase, and we want to be prepared for that.
yes,
And however you guys want to do that, that's great, fine. We just want to put information out for you.
yes, I agree with that statement that we do need to be aware of that. The payment is going to increase by, I don't remember what it is. I've got it here somewhere. 150,000-ish. I don't remember what it is. I'll find it on one of these. There. About 163,000 is what it's going to jump. I mean, yes, so we absolutely need to be aware of that. We need to be aware of the increased maintenance costs and operations costs and all of the above. But I guess I also don't see that as reason to waste $500,000 by just taking this money and holding it in savings. Because if this 25-year projection holds exactly accurate, that's what we're going to do. We're going to hold that 1.2 in savings, and we're going to pay $480,000 in interest on it over the life of that. So when that's the reality that the projections point to, and just completely runaway expenses, I don't see those as helpful projections. I don't see those as this is just conveying the point that we have to be aware of this increase in expense. This to me is throw up a red flag and scare everybody so we don't want to spend anything. That's what that feels like to me.
That's probably true. Again, because staff has a concern that there's been a disconnect as to fully understanding where the park stands. Again, going back to the pool issue, why are we $1 million off? How does that happen?
And I found that out because that was intentional. It was because we had such low interest rates. I have that in writing. From the agency. That was the plan all along. Yes, we didn't know that for a while. I asked that same question multiple times, and so I did the digging and I found it.
But I think that, again, there's a lot of expenses that weren't accounted for this year. Again, I think we would rather err on the side of caution as opposed to coming to you and saying, you don't have enough money to make payment.
Well, and I also agree that we should err on the side of caution. We should make sure that we need to make absolutely sure we do not run out of money. I mean, we can't go with the taxes we've got coming towards us. We cannot go say, hey, council, we need an extra $1 million this year. That's just not going to happen. But I guess I would like for you and the rest of the staff, whomever it is that is doing this, to have a little bit of faith in us that we can actually understand that.
Yeah.
Instead of having to put this, we're going to try to scare you into never doing anything in front of us. I mean, what I'm looking for is projections that we can actually use to make plans, not that try to scare us into not doing something. What's everybody else think about that? Am I off base on that request?
I don't think so. No. I mean, we all want to see what's best for the parks. You know, we want to be able to see our finances, and I know that's something that I don't feel comfortable on understanding and knowing like what we have going forward. I know we've had seen a lot of different projections put in front of us, whether it's from the A. Davidson or whether it's from you guys. But I don't feel like I have a comfortable grasp, you know, on where we're at and what we can spend year to year at this point. And it would be nice to understand that and know that before we decide what to do with that $1.3 million, 1.29, whatever it is. But none of us want to see us run out of money at all. You know, we want to make sure that we have all the funds there to do what we need to do year to year.
I agree with that 100%. It's extremely confusing to see how much we actually have and what we're able to spend it on.
One other thing I wanted to bring up, at the last meeting, Zach, you said that we don't have enough money in our moving forward in our budget to even pay for the staffing levels that we had this past year. But I just printed off the budget that was approved 16th of August, and it shows $15,000 more in salaries for the upcoming budget year than we had last year, plus a surplus of $118,000 between Fund 12 and Fund 20. So I mean, if we don't have enough to pay in salaries, then how is it that we're paying it, budget an extra 15 plus have 118 in surplus?
Well, I think the 115 was just for the additional in the salary was just to cover what you could spend this year on your existing staff. I don't have that kind of budget.
Yeah, so salaries, the 2022-2023 budget number was 139. The estimated year end was 135, and the 23-24 budget's 150. So it's 11,000 more than was budgeted last year, and it's 15 more than what was estimated to be.
And this year you spent 165,000 in salaries.
I'm looking at the budget sheet. I'm guessing you're pulling that off the finance page.
Yep. Second page, first line of the park department for the salaries.
Okay, yeah, that was the year-end estimate in the budget that was passed a month ago was 135.
Yep.
But in any case, okay, so if it was the year-end was 165, let's even call it 175. Then we still had 118,000 surplus. So even if we, there's 150 budgeted, we'd say, okay, let's make that 200. Then we've still got $68,000 surplus. I guess I don't see where it comes from that we don't have enough to cover.
I don't have that. I have to go back and look, but the last time that we sat down and looked at it to hire additional help, we didn't think that there was sufficient there. But I don't have that.
And like we talked about last time, we're not going to have enough just out of Fund 12. That's, I mean, that's with the extra maintenance required from the new park, we're going to have to pay some salaries out of Fund 20. That's just the reality. So,
and again, that goes back to my earlier comment. Combining the two funds, when this year is all said and done, you'll have right around $50,000 of excess revenue. And that's your current staffing level minus essentially 3 months.
and I mean, the Fund 20 is so, it fluctuates so much. I mean, it's looking at a year end and saying that's the performance of this year, I think is always, can certainly be misleading just because the construction schedule does not perfectly follow the fiscal year in terms of money in, money out.
Right.
So I guess where I'm trying to go with all of this is I am not comfortable that the projections that were put together that show that the only option to stay in the black is to put the entirety of that 1.2 million essentially into savings. I just don't think that's accurate. And
You're not putting it in savings, you're putting it toward debt service.
yes, and then taking that money and holding it in reserve. I mean, that's exactly what it shows is use that as an excess balance the whole way through. It accumulates in the fund balance until is the expenses pass revenue in year 2033. I mean, according to that projection, that's what's gonna happen is, yeah, we'll put it toward the debt service, but we'll take that money that we offset and we'll hold in the fund balance until we have to spend it in 20 years. So, like, I don't see that as reality. And it makes it, to me, it makes it incredibly difficult for us to make a proper decision on how to move forward when that's the only reference we've got. And when the we want to scare you into doing nothing is the only reference. I guess I would like a little bit of faith in us that we can make a proper decision and not overspend, that we can still be conservative if we have as accurate of a projection as possible.
Again, at the end of the day, projection means nothing. This is the one that counts. I mean, this is where you are. This is where you are today. How much you spend, how much you brought in. And again, I think it just goes back to the point that we don't have a lot of excess revenue to do a bunch of things.
No, and
so
correct. Today we don't.
Right.
And
if we have some good years and we build up some money, great. If we want to do things, great, awesome. We're all for that. But I think there is a concern that we're afraid that expenses are going to exceed revenue at some point in time.
well, then I would like for us to have an honest look at what that looks like instead of
It's going to be close to that.
instead of the fire alarm.
Our projections and the purpose for us to projections are going to be pretty close to that. I'll just be honest with you. And is that a doomsday scenario? Maybe, but that's, again, I would rather err on that side than on the other.
Well, I would rather see it as realistic as we possibly can and then decide how much to err. How much to save back.
I guess, are there any other options, you know, or is that like the only option we have, is to put that towards debt service?
Now, that's really the only option we have. Because it has to go to the pool project.
Or the park project.
Or the park?
And that was the original intent. I have the letter, and when I found the letter, I called Charlie Zitnick at D.A. Davidson and I said, hey, I just found this letter. Is this still accurate? He said, absolutely.
I'd have to check on that because I haven't ever heard that it was stolen. So I have to check on that.
He also told me that he was going to double check with his attorneys and verify that was still the case and give City Hall a call. And for several months, we were told that no, we are not allowed. It's unallowed by the terms of the bonds to use the pool money for the park. But that was the original intent. And he said he would call City Hall and let them know. Nothing was ever said, but the next meeting, all of a sudden, we had this unallocated money. It was no longer tied up. So I have to assume that he called in and said, yes, he can. And that's a question that we can ask again. But like I said, that was the original intent. That's why.
Yeah, that was before, I know Zach was here and stuff,
Yeah.
but we did ask that for months and we kept getting told no until Matt followed up on it. And that was what Charlie had said at the time, so I do remember that all happening.
So, I mean, based on that, I would say that no, that's not our only option. I understand that's the option that you and staff would prefer. But I disagree that it's the only option. And I don't like making a decision like that on half the information. I mean, we only have the doomsday side of it. You know, that, to me, that's not enough to make a proper decision on what to do with over $1 million of the community's money.
Well, again, that's why you should make all your decisions on this. But we should never make decisions on projections. Now, if we're doing a bond issue, it's different, but regarding capital project, I think this right here is what tells you everything that you need to know.
And according to that, we've got $1.2 million sitting in the bank ready to spend, right? Because it's already been issued, it just hasn't been allocated. So
Yeah.
according to that, we have a surplus this year. We have an extra $1 million.
I'm talking about operations and moving forward.
Yes, and the only way to project moving forward is to do those projections. The numbers, the past numbers are, they only show up until now. They don't show anything going forward, right? That's the whole purpose of the projections to begin with. Right?
I think we move on.
Okay. Well, before we move on, I mean, I don't want to just move on and keep kicking this can down the road and we come to the meeting at the end of next month and $370,000 has been issued and put toward that service.
We will reach out to DA Davidson and see what we can use that money on. But like I said, my last conversation with them, the only thing that he could really essentially do with it was to conduct a debt service. So I will reach out to Charlie tomorrow and get clarification on that.
Okay. All right, staff report.
Just a couple things to make note of. We did get the pool winterized. Midwest Pool was here and completed that. Carruthers was supposed to be here last week. I'm not sure if they made it or if they were rescheduling it for this week. We were going to kind of go through and double check a few things to make sure there wasn't anything that we missed in the during the winterization process. After we talked to after Midwest Pool did the winterization, they came out and did their final inspection and went through everything. They'll put together a final report that we should have here, hoping by next week. We'll meet with them, go over that, and then probably have them at the next work session, possibly, depending on how soon we get their report. Again, just in talking with the guys that day, there was a few things, a few recommendations that they had that we'll work on, and like I said, we'll visit with Carruthers too and see if there's any other issues. For those that weren't there, we did have the joint meeting with the council on the 21st. I think there was good communication between the park board and the council. I think it went well. For you that are there, I don't know if you guys felt the same way, but I thought it went good. I didn't have any issues with it. I think that was kind of the same comment from the council. So, and again, I think it would be good that we do that twice a year. Get together, joint meeting, and discuss some things. So that went well. And then on the staffing, we did our positions have closed. We have reached out to a couple applicants for interviews, and I don't think, when I left at the end of the day, I don't think we had anything scheduled in stone yet, but we made some contact to a few, and we'll try to get those scheduled here starting next week, first week there in October. And I think, as I mentioned before, we're going to hire the superintendent first, and then we will look to go through the maintenance coordinator and get them hired here. Hopefully all before the end of the year.
And I had asked you this here last time we talked about that, but is it possible for board members to sit in on those interviews?
I think right now we're going with just staff, and it will be myself, the city manager, and our HR director.
Anything else? Zach, anything else?
Oh, no, that's it. Sorry, that's it.
Questions, comments for Zach?
I think it'd be nice to be somewhat involved in screening applicants, I guess, or at least looking at applications myself. Is that allowed?
I'll have to check on that. I don't know. We'll have to check on that and see. I don't know that we can just do one board member. Actually, I don't know, because you do act as a board. And And again, those are just some of the conversations that we had at the staff level talking about it. So I'll have to check on that and find out.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I would say that I'm not asking to say that I want to participate in the interview, just sit and listen more than anything. And I don't even know that I would be free. That would just be, it would be nice to have that option.
What would be like the best case scenario as far as when we would have the superintendent? Best and worst case scenario, like?
Probably the best case scenario is starting November 1st.
This time of year, there's always, with the holidays coming up, January 1st to February 1st, depending where somebody's coming from, having to move, that sort of thing, any of those are realistic.
Yeah, I mean, it's, like I said, it really depends on, the individual and their current situation. But if we're doing interviews the first week, maybe first 2 weeks of October, depending on schedules, and somebody giving 2 weeks notice, like I said, your November, that's pretty optimistic.
Yeah.
I know a few of the candidates are not from around here, like I said, there'd be the ability to move and those kinds of things, so, I don't think it's January 1st is out of the realm possible.
I just wanted to make sure to temper expectations that it wasn't, hey, we're gonna have somebody on November 1st.
Yeah, that's why I was, range is more.
Yep. No, that, like I said, that would be nice, and like I said, I think a couple of the candidates that might actually happen, but like I said, a couple of them that, like I said, I'm not sure exactly their situation, so it could take some time. And again, we obviously sometimes, like I said, sometimes 2 weeks notice isn't enough. It might be 1 month's notice, so like I said, it's hard to tell, but yeah.
So is it priority, obviously, superintendent first, and then the maintenance coordinator? Does that happen once the superintendent?
Yeah, and again, that's something that will kind of play by ear. Again, our initial thought was if we get the superintendent hired, get them in here, they're here in first order, then we can go through the other, and they can be involved in the process. Again, help kind of foster that ownership of the department and stuff like that. If it's a case where, again, we've got the superintendent hired and they can't start until January 1 or something like that, yeah, we might proceed to go ahead and look at the other ones and go from there. But yeah, we'd like to select the superintendent first and then the maintenance coordinator. And I think there are a few that have applied for both.
I think that makes sense to do it that way, to hopefully allow the new superintendent to be involved in selection of the maintenance coordinator.
I mean, there's some things you can't tell in an interview, but he might pick up on a personality class right away or something like that. Somebody, the rest of us might not. So, and we'll see. We'll play with it.
Any other questions, comments for Zach? All right, we'll move on to unfinished business. Robbie and I were talking the other day while our kids were trying out for Frozen. Thought that, I'm assuming at this point Patrick has not looked at the
Would you try out for what?
Frozen, the musical.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. Sorry.
The high school's doing Frozen Junior.
Okay.
And they needed kids for young Anna.
Okay.
So.
Okay. All right. Good. I'm with you now. Okay. Sorry.
So they, along with half the CIS girls, tried out for those positions.
So naturally, in Park 5 was.
Yes. So anyway, am I correct that Patrick hasn't?
Yeah, he is not, and I visited with him again there last week, and he did not. He's on some things, and I think that we kind of shifted his focus for tonight, and so he kind of did. So, but no, I don't have any response back from him.
So Robbie and I's thought was, especially given the clause in the bylaws to where they could be amended as needed, we go ahead and pass them as written, and if, when Patrick does have a chance to review, he flags something, we can amend it at that point. Does that make sense to everybody? I printed one copy of them. Does anybody need to see them? It's the same draft that we ended with the last time.
I'll make a motion, we pass the park board bylaws as written in the recent version.
I would second that.
All right, is there any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hey, we have bylaws. So since we now have bylaws, one of the clauses of the bylaws is that upon initial passing, if a majority of the board would like to, we can hold a new officer election. Would anybody like to hold a new officer election at this time?
Nope.
Okay. Is there any new business?
Do you want us to do it without the agenda for the next time to officially elect the selected officers?
The way it's written in here is just at the board's option if I want to,
Okay.
along with the thing. So
Okay.
if a majority of the board wants to hold a new election, we do.
Okay.
So it's, the officers are still standing.
Okay.
Is there any new business? Nothing on the agenda. All right, one thing, we got left off the agenda, the special meeting topic for 2 weeks. My first thought would be come to consensus on the budget, to be able to figure out what the plan moving forward is.
I was gonna suggest that myself, because that's probably the number one thing that I need more info on.
Yeah, we gotta see if we
More
can't,
clarity, yeah.
It's hard to make plans when
we can't do anything else without having that. All right.
And then I still think, I'm hoping that we'll have the final report from Midwest before we get them to come present. So
Okay.
I don't know, assume we'll have somebody in person, if not, we can get it right soon, but. Yeah, that would, like I said, I don't know how soon we're gonna get the final report, so that might not happen. That was also on the list of possibilities.
Yeah, if that's, I would say if that's ready, go ahead and add that to the beginning of the meeting.
Okay.
Anybody disagree?
No,
All right, comments from the board. I brought this up at the joint session. This is the first time bringing it up for the board proper. Chris had put me in touch with somebody with the Scouts, looking for Eagle Scout projects. There's one project definitely ready to go. It's been sitting there for a couple of years, several years, waiting for a scout to do it. The tree ID signs along the east side of the 88 trail. Several of them got put up incorrectly on wrong species. Several of them have fallen down over the years. Because back when Drew was here, he had ordered a new set of signs. I think he may have already had both set aside. So that would be one Eagle Scout project. And my thought for the others, they said there was 4 boys that are going to need projects this winter. The Eagle Lake hiking trail needed footbridges. The footbridge, the plans, the best option that I have found is one that is buildable by Eagle Scouts as projects, and kind of the reference that I use for how long they can last was an Eagle Scout built bridge at a state park in Georgia, I think it was, and it's been up for 16, 18 years at this point on a heavily used trail out there. So my assumption is if we do that for Eagle projects, we would provide the materials, and then the scout would coordinate construction. Does that sound good to everybody?
what trail is that?
It's the hiking trail around Eagle Lake.
Are you looking at just going on the north side of it first, or the full thing?
My assumption would be we start with the east side.
Well, the east side, I guess.
Yeah,
East
and-
north.
And
Yeah.
so just doing a one-way on the east side of the lake is going to be the easiest way to get it operational. And then crossing the spillways at both ends are that's the worst crossings, the biggest bridges. So those will, I would say we start with the east side and we see where we get and make that decision as we go. I still need to get back out around it and see what.
How many footbridges were needed on the east side?
There's
The west side had more.
there's at least one on the east side where the main creek comes in on the east side. The others, I think we could get by if we did any. It would be just it's a little 6 foot span.
Right.
I've got a spreadsheet and maps with
I said, I'm
all the
looking at
lands and everything. I don't have that with me. But I want to say, as far as substantial bridges, that one's about a 30-foot span. But that's the only one of that size. The other couple would be smaller things that also would probably get by just big rock gravel in the stream bed sort of thing.
Yeah, and I still think there's an opportunity that we could do that at the main spillway of number 3 of Eagle,
At the north end.
at the north end, that we could get in there and create some type of just foot.
Especially if we go all the way down to the new tractor crossing where they took out the tube.
Oh, yeah.
If we go down,
so there.
That's my working plan right now, is to put a smaller footbridge across right there. If we go up closer to the spillway itself, I mean, that's a 100-some odd foot span. I mean, it's
pretty hairy.
there's a lot of options going forward. I mean, we're by no means set into this is what it has to look like at this point, but
You're just talking about getting some of the smaller ones done by the Eagle Scouts, like.
even if we can just get that one done, I think that would be a win.
Right.
I think the second that there's more work out there, people are gonna make their own path. They're gonna, yeah, I think it will definitely get some use. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a good trail.
Oh, it's fun.
Yeah, it
is.
It is.
Yeah, it's a good trail. I'm still leery of the south end. I just don't know the best way there.
That's the only way I can see that happening is you stick as close to Eagle Lake as possible, and you just hop across. So the 2 spillways come down from Century and Sunrise. You have one span go across to that little sliver of land, and then another one go across the rest of the land. That's the only way I see it happening.
Yeah, that's just kind of tough.
What's the estimated cost? Like, it's probably not.
I have all of those figures. I priced it all, and I want to say I don't want to give a number just for the fear of giving it to you wrong, but I want to say for all of the bridges to get it open was around $19,000 in materials in total, and that does not include concrete footers. Zach, a couple of years ago, you had said that you thought the utilities or somebody could work on those. Is that still? Okay. So, I mean, comparing that to $250,000 for a steel bridge at minimum,
Yeah.
19,000.
I think if you could market it down.
No.
Still.
And, I mean, I've looked at every possible type of bridge. I was just about ready to bid on scrap grade bid catwalks up in Iowa one year and just take off and drive up there, but I couldn't find a trailer big enough to haul. Yeah, I've looked at newly constructed grain bin catwalks. That's, if we do go with a new bridge, like an actual bridge, that's probably the most economical way. Yeah, like I said, I've looked at every option I can think of, and this style is the best one that I can find.
I want to see your
What's that?
print for me.
Yeah, I don't think I have a copy of it with me.
Well, just something.
No, I don't have a copy of it with me. I'll send that out to everybody. I pulled together pictures of finished bridges. I bought them in a set of plans. it's $40. You give him a finished span and he'll send exact dimensions, drawings, plans. They're about $40 a piece. I went ahead and bought one just to have it as an example. Miscellaneous for anybody else?
Did you find anything out on those lights at the pool by chance?
No, I have not.
No, okay. That's somebody else asked me about that again this week, and I was like, yeah, that's what we talked about at our last meeting, but I said, I don't know, I'll ask again and see.
We had that conversation today, but I haven't had anything else.
Okay. No, I was curious, I was like, oh, maybe they got it figured out by now, I didn't know.
Anything else?
Speaking of lights at the park, what are the stipulations to being able to have lights on out there? Because it's getting darker sooner and sooner, like if there was teams practicing, how do they get?
Yeah, I turned them off for somebody.
I've been turning them on for
Last
soccer.
night I saw that they were playing with.
Yeah. So my 10U coach was like, we got lights the other night, like that was awesome.
That was me.
Yeah,
So
so they've all looked into it, so.
I think and I don't know
We practiced through October.
discuss this, but I think the original plan when we put together the fee schedule was any reservation comes along with lights. So with the LEDs, those things are electric efficient enough that we decided not to add any extra light fee into the reservation, but just basically the reservation comes along with the lights. So in terms of people just going to use the park without a reservation, I don't know that, I mean, as it stands now, we don't have a way to do that, no.
Yeah, if we have a reservation, we can easily put in a schedule of, you just let us know when it is. And we put it in the
Sunset
schedule.
at 10 p.m.
Yeah.
You know, it's kind of, I think, how it comes up. And they show off at 10 p.m.
So it's very easy to do.
Comes
Because they
along
were
with
super grateful for that. 'Cause it's getting dark early.
Oh, yeah, for
Well,
sure.
and Zach, I don't know, it's like, I know me and Robbie have access to it, it might not be
I don't have access. Matt does.
massive. I mean, the more people, I guess, on the board that have access are involved, like, you know, or.
That's the nice thing about that stuff is again, you can get access. It doesn't require somebody to be out there to turn it on.
Right, because most of us know somebody that's involved, and they're like, hey,
Right.
the light's on, they text you, and they're like, okay.
I've said this about 45 times, but one of these days I'm gonna stop by and get set up.
It would be good to get access.
I tried to get your laptop out there. Anyway.
Somebody.
We'll get there. We'll get there. Right now.
So just on the phone.
Yeah, it's just an app.
It just must go by,
Somebody texted me.
so you can, yeah, you can text me, yeah,
Yeah, I've got access.
that's fine, but you,
I guess that is something maybe we need to address as an official light policy for, I mean, it's built into the reservation, but for people that want to just be able to use the park, how we handle that. So that'll be on the future discussion points.
Yeah, I think like you said, the fact that it's LED, it's not, we're not that, it's not spinning like it was with the old HPS lights and stuff, so. Yeah, your cost is gonna be pretty minimal for.
I think it was for early family fields, the 300-foot baseball field at full blast, it was like $1.13 an hour at the published commercial rates.
let's go.
So, I mean, it's not much at all.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, probably, that's almost cheap security, just to leave them on.
and we may end up doing it.
Right. So,
Yeah, I'd say, I'll just make a note of that for next month's meeting.
okay.
Anything else?
Our joint meeting, council and park, was mentioned on Facebook. I should have mentioned this long ago. A party who doesn't even live in town has a lot to say on Facebook, but his critique was nothing for seniors was mentioned either by city or park. I mean,
Activities, amenities, all of the above?
well, then we were compared to another town who has done all of this other stuff for seniors, so.
Are they looking for anything in particular, or?
No, just critiquing, as he does.
Well, we have an ADA accessible walking trail that would be wonderful for seniors
With a flashlight.
with a flashlight. We have ADA accessible fishing deck
But
at Sunrise Lake, if he likes to fish.
his theory was, we didn't mention it, neither the city nor the park board, so just minimum chatter.
Well, it'd be nice to hear from them, and, you know, if they have a list, or if they wanna come to a meeting and discuss it, I would be glad to hear that.
I think something that was good that was brought up that I had there, Councilwoman Reed brought up the fact, maybe more benches in Corporal Park. I hadn't heard that was a need or a concern, and on that note, we did get our benches today, and as soon as we get one put together, I'll send you guys some pictures, but I think they're more of a park bench type style, not an athletic bench or team bench that I was kind of picturing. But anyway, so it might be a good fit to put a couple of those in the park, but we'll get some pictures and send to you. But again, that was something brought up that I had not
Yeah, I was unaware.
about or unaware of, so.
I guess I've been to band concerts a lot, and I mean, the benches fill up quickly,
Right.
and everybody else is on chairs or blankets. But
They do, they really do, I've been to some of those too, and it probably would help, because maybe some of the older people probably can't carry their chairs there.
Right.
So like I said, that was a good comment that came from the meeting, and again, I think we've got a lot to do.
and for somebody that has difficulty getting up from sitting, a bench is probably a lot better than a folding chair.
Yeah, I would say anybody from the community that has recommendations, or,
Come on.
yeah, bring it to us. Let us hear it, bring it to a meeting, and we will be glad to hear it and discuss it. So, the more the merrier.
Anything else? If no, look for a.
I was just gonna, so we've got the tournament, sorry.
7th and the 14th,
Yeah.
that has those dates pegged down.
You got it, okay, let's make sure.
Because we discussed parking. You were not joining.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah.
Some parking, roving that off, I just wanna make sure we have everything aligned and ready for those.
Sprinklers off out there.
Yeah.
Loadings at the right time, maybe not at the beginning of the week, towards the end of the week. Yeah, stuff like that.
Yeah, we have those 2 days on the calendar.
Perfect.
All right, if nothing else, we'll look for a motion to move into executive session.
I'll make a motion, we go to executive session.
I'll second.